next piece I'm going to do is about an African-American slave. Deep connection with our country. Prince among slaves, brought in by ships, mass graves. They use whips till he behaves, yet he only submits when he prays. Sound the horn, this is the crescendo, born in Timbo, Futa Jalo. I scorn racial in your windows, hear the truth of this fellow. An ethnic Fulani, head full of Quran, see? He was learned in Mali and in Timbuktu. In an African country, this young prince grew, but you have never heard of Abdurrahman Ibrahim Ibn Sori. 5 prayers a day, starting in the dark hours of the morning. Listen to his story, being faithful to his religion was his glory. Though he commanded an army, don't find it alarming. Peace was his nature, a kind man who preferred farming, not servitude and forced labor. But let's see how the test of time turned his favor. He was abducted at 26, sold to them slave traders. He survived the Holocaust, you call the Middle Passage. Now he lives on a cotton plantation in Natchez. He's a prince among slaves, brought in by ships, mass graves. They use whips till he behaves, yet he only submits when he prays. Through the hardship, liberation his target. He remained a believer. Now hear the irony, he became the de facto overseer. Scars on his back, oh did he see her? His wife Isabella fell in love with this Prince Charming fella. No, this is not a fairy tale, but something I bear to tell. The truth will make you scared as hell. He was worked like an ox and one day spotted by Dr. John Cox, the same Irishman who met him in his homeland. Couldn't believe or understand how a prince could become a slave. This prince was the one who had saved his life. He went to the plantation and was told there was no price he could pay. He was told a slave is a slave until they hit the grave, and then they're a slave in the grave. Dr. Cox did everything he could do, and when he died his son did too, but all in vain, because the prince was to remain in chains. He was a prince among slaves, brought in by ships, mass graves. They use whips till he behaves, yet he only submits when he prays. Now he has 5 sons and 4 daughters. He strives some, but it only becomes more harder. Days are harder, his mind is on the ground with a pile of pressure, so he compiles a letter. If his family in Africa only knew, they'd send ships and canoes with all the kingdom's treasure to bring freedom to this royal successor. But that be turmoil for the oppressor. After being sent around a lot though, the message was read by the Sultan of Morocco. He couldn't believe they were holding the Prince in such a spot, so he told John Quincy Adams and Henry Clay, I don't know how this happened, but this prince must be released today. The slave owner was in such dismay. His elite worker was now free on his way, but not so fast. His children were still cast on the plantation. He can't save them with the little bit of cash he raised. He set sail, regrets well, my heart is crashed on these Atlantic waves. Prince among slaves, brought in by ships, mass graves. They use whips till he behaves, yet he only submits when he prays. His heart torn apart because his children still not free. For him, liberation cannot start with his family enslaved overseas on the West African coast, the location of the most horrible trade post in world history. If you listen close, you can see and hear the ghost waiting on the shores for his closest kin. It's been a century since misery touched them, so today they're called African American. But so many don't know the depth of the origin, the fact that the civilization of West African nations were practicing Muslim, an identity taken away, replaced with a mistaken way. The true African heritage was forsaken because it inspired people only to obey the one true God. Abdurrahman praised every single day. He was a prince among slaves.